Okay, so yesterday we talked about finding the slope of a graph, which is just a basic intro to what we're doing today. Because today, not only do we have to identify the slope, we need to identify the y-intercept. Because we really focus on being able to write the equation in what we call slope-intercept form. Okay, so slope, remember we learned the variable for that would be m. And y-intercept, which is new today, would be the y-intercept is they represent with b, okay? Slope-intercept form, you should have learned from last year, is y equals mx plus b. And all we're going to be doing for every single equation or question is setting it up like this, where we're going to find the slope and we're going to find the y-intercept, okay? Now, the confusing part about this equation is people assume that it's always going to be positive b, okay? It's not going to be. It could be positive plus b or it can be minus b, so be prepared for both. All right, so if I look at number 1, okay, the first thing we're going to find is the slope. Again, that's like yesterday. So my slope is taking my 2 points, drawing that L, and then we count how long the sides are, 1, 2, 3, and 1. So again, it's rise over run, so 3 over 1. And then I type that in to see if it simplifies. And it simplifies to 3. But remember, don't forget to look at the direction of the line. So the direction of this line is going up, so it's positive 3. Now the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so if you need to erase your work after you do that to see it better, where it crosses the y-axis here is right at this point. And we have to figure out what is that point. So if the center is 0 and I go down, it's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So my y-intercept is negative 3. Now all we're going to do is combine these two pieces of information into this y equals mx plus b. So y equals, m is the slope, so my slope was positive 3, x, because it's always slope times x. And then my y-intercept is negative 3. Now here, you could see it two different ways, but honestly, I've seen it the second way. The first way is plus negative 3. Totally fine. But I've seen it more often than not as just minus 3 because it was negative 3, okay? If I look at number 2, we're going to do the exact same thing. So first, we try to find our slope. Our slope, remember, is by drawing that L. And then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Rise over run, so it's 3 over 2. I always type this in to see if it simplifies, because it could. It doesn't simplify, it stays 3 over 2. But then look at the direction of the line. The direction of this line is going downward, so it's negative 3 over 2. Then I look at the y-intercept. That means where it crosses the y-axis. So right here's the y-axis, it crosses right there. This is 0, so this is positive 1, positive 2. Then I just put those two pieces of information together and my y equals mx plus b. So y equals the slope, which is negative 3 halves, x, plus my y-intercept, and since it's positive 2, I am going to put plus 2. Number 3, same exact thing, so I'm going to do it in pieces. I do my slope, so my slope is that capital L, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rise over run, which is 2 over 5. I check to see if it simplifies, and it says 2 over 5. Look at the direction of the line. The direction of the line is pointed upward, so it is positive 2/5. My y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Now here, the y-axis has shifted, so this graph can look a little tricky. Here is my y-axis right here, and it crosses the y-axis there. And since this is 0, this is 1, 2, so my y-intercept is 2. When I put these two pieces of information together, I have y equals my slope, which was 2/5 x. And since my y-intercept is positive 2, I'm going to put plus 2. Number 4, again, same exact thing. So my slope first is drawing that L. If I count, it's 1, 2, 3, and 1. Rise over run says 3 over 1. If I type that in my calculator, it does simplify to positive 3. But wait, is it positive 3? The direction of my line for the right side is pointed down, so it would be negative 3 as the slope. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So the y-axis is here, and it crosses the y-axis here. So it crosses at positive 1. So then I put my slope and my y-intercept in the equation. Y equals the slope, which was negative 3x. The y-intercept, which is positive 1, so I put plus 1. A lot of people will just put 3x1. That is not the same thing. To me, that looks like multiplication. So you have to put a plus or a minus. Number 5, more and more practice. So I first find the slope. This is the rise over the run, so I draw my L. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Rise over run says 3 over 2. When I type this in, it does not simplify, and the direction of the line tells me that it is positive 3 over 2. The y-intercept, this is where it crosses the y-axis, so that is up here. And this is 0, 1, 2, 3, so it's positive 3. If I put those two together, y equals the slope, which is 3 over 2x. The y-intercept is positive 3, so I put plus 3. Number 6, I first find my slope. So that is the rise over the run. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So it's 2 over 3. Always check to see if it simplifies. Oops. And it doesn't, but the direction of this line is pointed down, so it's negative 2 over 3. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Here's the y-axis here, so it crosses at 0, negative 1, negative 2. Then I combine them into the equation, so y equals the slope, negative 2/3 x, and the y-intercept is negative 2, so minus 2. Number 11, same over and over. So I first find my slope. This is your rise over your run. So slope is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 over 3, which simplifies to 1. But the direction of this line is pointed down, so it's negative 1. And the y-intercept crosses at the origin. And since it crosses at the origin, the y-intercept is 0. How I write this is y equals the slope, negative 1x. And they will, since y-intercept is 0, they will not put 0. They will just leave this part blank because it won't make a difference to do plus 0 or minus 0. It's just 0, so it's going to not be there. You could see it written like this, but more than likely, we've talked about this before, they will not put a 1. They'll just put y equals negative x. So be prepared for that. Number 12, we find our slope first. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. My slope is rise over run, so 2 over 3. When I type in 2 over 3, oops, try to do that too fast. Ugh. It does not simplify. It stays 2 over 3, but the direction of this line tells me it goes down, so it's negative. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. And since this is 0, this is 1. So y equals the slope, negative 2/3 x. And since y-intercept is positive 1, I put plus 1. Okay, then we're going to talk about our special cases. These are those horizontal and vertical lines because there are certain ways to write their equations. So whenever you see a vertical line, okay, my equation is always going to be x equals a number. And the reason why it's x equals a number is because look at it. It crosses the x-axis. So that's why it's x equals, because it crosses the x-axis. We just have to figure out where does it cross the x-axis. And here, it crosses the x-axis at positive 1, 2, 3. So my answer is literally x equals 3, not y equals here. If it's a horizontal line, it's the opposite. since it's a horizontal line, it actually crosses the y-axis. So you guessed it, it's not x equals, it's going to be y equals a number. And I just have to figure out where does it cross the y-axis, and it crosses the y-axis at -1 here. So y equals -1. So let's take that same exact practice and put it here, okay? If I look at number 1, I know my slope is undefined, okay? We got that down, but what is the equation? So ask yourself this question. Does it cross the x-axis or does it cross the y-axis? This particular question crosses the x-axis, so I know it's x equals. And where does it cross the x-axis? Well, it crosses it at 0, -1, -2. And there's my answer. Number 2, ask yourself this question. Which axis does it cross? Well, it crosses the y-axis, so it's y equals. And where does it cross the y-axis? Well, if this is 0, this is 1, 2, 3. Y equals 3. Number 3, this is a horizontal line. It does cross the y-axis. Where does it cross the y-axis? Well, if this is 0, this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So y equals -5. Number 4, which axis does it cross? Well, it crosses the x-axis, and it crosses the x-axis at 1, 2, 3, 4. X equals 4. Number 5, here, this one people get confused on. It's on the y-axis, but it crosses the x-axis, okay? On and crosses are two different things. So this one crosses the x-axis, and where does it cross the x-axis? At 0, so x equals 0. Number 6, this one crosses the y-axis, and it crosses the y-axis at +2. So there you go. You have your special cases and you have your simple slope-intercept form equations.